Good morning, comrades. It is Tuesday. You know what that means. Time to listen to our regular big show that goes on the radio. Good morning, comrade. This morning we have Jeff.
And this is Robert. Please, Jeff, don't be so excited about it. My goodness. And if you don't know, Good Morning Comrade is a leftist socialist radio show on WHIV 102.3 Low Power FM in New Orleans, and also podcasts. You can find us now 5 days a week, breaking my back to rant to you on your drive time. People seem to really enjoy that. So share it with your friends. We really appreciate you listening. And we have a special guest in studio today. Jeff, please introduce the friend of the show.
So we have on the show today the host of NOLA Matters, Islam in the Crescent City. She's also, well, you can introduce yourself. We have Jenny Yanez in the building. Go ahead and just say a little bit about yourself.
So, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I always start the show like that. Assalamu alaikum is the greeting that Muslims give each other, so it's basically peace. And that's how I start my show, so I'm really grateful to be here. And I've been knowing some of y'all for a while. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy to be here, but this is not going on live, right? So, no. Yeah, okay, well, my show is live.
Well, now it is. Right now, it's 8 in the morning. We're having coffee, and
just drop that facade. Can we just do that? I mean, that's not a thing that's happening. This is definitely pre-recorded, so I can get all the naughty words out so we don't get fined by the FCC.
I will never stop. I will never drop the facade.
Anyway. And if you're pre-recording it, this could be edited later, so nobody will hear this part of the conversation anyway. So we were just having a conversation a little bit ago about an event that's, well, actually, before we do that, so just, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What are you doing here? What is the work that you do as an organizer in the community? So this is Good Morning Comrade, and this is on WHIV New Orleans radio stations, where I also have my show, NOLA Matters, Islam in the Crescent City. And we just finished having an organizing meeting in this space. So this space is used for social justice-y things, I'd like to call it. Does that sound cool?
Yeah. So
can you find another name for that? Social justice-y things?
Why do you need a better name for that?
There's no reason to. Don't let anybody, and I've said this on a previous show, don't let anybody chastise you for being a social justice warrior. Like, be proud of that. Like, being a social justice warrior has a long lineage of being on the right side of history. Don't let Jordan Peterson make you feel any kind of way about that. A man who sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, like Martin Luther King was a social justice warrior, right?
So we use the space for organizing like minds, and we was here. We were here, and we're still here. And you wanted to know a little bit about me?
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
I don't know why they want to know a little bit about me.
Because you're like a super interesting person.
But yeah, so I've been knowing Jeffrey, right?
Yeah.
I've been knowing Jeffrey, but Robert.
That's correct.
I met recently, like 2 months ago.
Yeah, like a month actually, because we've been doing the show for a month.
Yeah.
So not too much longer than that.
Yeah. So it's fair if you ask me, because if Jeffrey was going to ask me, then I'd be like, Jeffrey, what's up? Come on, you know who I am.
And the audience as well.
Oh, that's right. So I forgot that we were just having a conversation. I thought there was people listening out there.
Kind of a side note. What? It's like probably going to be boring for people listening outside the New Orleans area, even though there are a ton of you. So just bear with us. What mosque do you go to? Is that one in Kenner that's like...
That is a good question. So what mosque do I go to? So I like to consider myself not a member of any particular mosques, but as a Muslim. And a Muslim is a person who follows Islam, right? So a person who believes that Islam is not just a faith, but a way of life. And we believe that all of God's green earth is a mosque itself, right? So we can pray anywhere. But in terms of the building that people go just specifically for that, I go most of the time to one that's closest to my home, which is Abu Bakr.
which is in Metairie, Kenner line, almost literally.
Is that the one? The reason why I asked is because during the Trump Muslim ban, there was a mosque that invited people to come out and be like, hey, you want to see what we do here and whatever. And they did the best possible thing, is not only open their doors to the public, is that they had Whole Foods chantilly cake. And I want to know if that was your mosque.
So where? What neighborhood was that in?
See, I'm terrible with Kenner. It's kind of by the airport.
Yeah, no, if it was Kenner, it was us. It was us.
It's the cake and true Islam.
Okay, so that's another mosque.
Oh, okay.
That's another mosque. And so I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything wrong about that mosque. They're actually, they do Wednesday, I think, meetings on Wednesdays,
okay.
and they're very sweet and nice. They're much smaller representation of the local Muslim community. So that was the Ahmadi mosque, and there's a very small, maybe 3% of the world's Muslims are Ahmadis. So my mosque is like almost 90% of the world's Muslims, 85% of the world's Muslims. And that's also of the Muslims in the New Orleans area.
Right.
So 90% are basically what you might have heard as Sunni.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Kind of like, just, I hate to put labels, but
Shia,
you know, we have an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't go through all the history and all that, but we also have we had a huge open house, more than one. And our mosque was the most well-attended, probably, open house in the city. Maybe, I would like to say, over 150 people attended that open house. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it always happens, or used to happen, as a reactionary thing. So, something happens around the world, you know, I mean, let's be blunt. Your show is very blunt, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a terrorist act somewhere around the world, and everybody starts saying, oh, Jenny, you're Muslim, right? Do you have something to say? And it's like,
because, yeah.
I know you're expecting me to say, I'm sorry, but I didn't do anything. But we do understand the apprehension and the fear people have, because we're pissed off too.
Right.
Because we're pissed off too. So least we could do is open our doors and talk to people and let them know, this is our mosque. You have any questions about Islam? You know, come and ask us. Don't ask someone who may not know.
So it's not your job to speak for all Muslims everywhere on earth? Because I was told by Fox News it was, like, at all times, like that's what you have to do.
Oh, well,
no, that's not right.
Fox News is like an old family member that's like, you know that they're there, but you just haven't talked to them in years. Yeah, I don't know what Fox News has been saying anymore, but yeah, it's been years that basically the Muslim community has come to the realization that, you know, we could say what's right and wrong, but to continuously apologize when we haven't seen other people apologize every time a white supremacist does something, we don't see the church come out or
ding, 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 ding.
And say we did that.
On behalf of all white people, I apologize.
But
do not represent me.
Yeah, if you ask me as a human, what do I think about a terrorist attack? Then you're dehumanizing me, because you should know my answer is, this is inhumane, this is horrible. But if you ask me and you don't ask Jeffrey, what did you think about that attack? Then there's something wrong. So
and it's almost like this assumption of guilt by association or by the same religion. But again, if somebody who's like a Christian terrorist or whatever, or a terrorist who just happens to be Christian, they don't even get those kind of sideways, BS questions.
So basically, until fairly recently, many in the Muslim community, when they were asked, it was like, yes, this is horrible. We're sorry. This has nothing to do with our faith. Our faith is being hijacked. And we would spend a lot of time just like self-loathing. It was self-loathing. And then we realized, like, no, everybody can see clearly what's right and what's not right. But there's a difference between taking on, like, the self-hate and feeling than it does to feel pain for your brothers and sisters in the world. There's a difference. And so we've been working on that instead. So instead of having open houses, this is brilliant. We just realized that instead of having open houses only as a reaction, let's just have them regularly. Right? Let's just open the doors.
Open, like, 24/7, just like you're always available for the community, and to essentially say, this is us all the time, and not responding simply to when these horrible things happen to you or to like people who are Muslim, or happen from people who are Muslim, right? Either way, like, people all of a sudden like, wow, this is something that we're super interested in because they're talking about it on the news.
And I just broke my own stereotype, which is, how come every time we talk to a Muslim, first thing we got to talk about is terrorism?
Sure.
I just broke my own stereotype.
Well, it's just like
That's the first thing we've ever talked about, though.
On the show today,
On the show.
oh, this is an introduction to Jenny, and look what she brought up first.
like for people who are from listening to this outside the area, you gotta understand that Jenny lives in, or her mosque is, I don't know where you live, but we live in New Orleans, so we live in like a metropolitan area. It's pretty hip, it's pretty happening. But then like her mosque is in Kenner, which might as well be like that. When you think about Louisiana, like close your eyes, think about gators, giant rats called nutria, Cajun people speaking undecipherable dialects. That's Kenner.
It's where Steven Seagal decided he wanted to be a cop and hung out with Harry Lee and shot nutrias.
Right. So it's like, what is the Muslim?
It's where David Duke is from.
Yeah, is where David Duke is from. Like, what is the
Yeah,
Muslim
David Duke.
experience in Kenner? Because like my dad is
Steve
a
Scalise is the representative of that district that
my
I live in.
yeah.
Khalees is one of the architects of the Muslim ban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So-
we passed by his office and,
Like
on our way home.
My dad is like a 6 foot tall, a black Jew, and he hangs out with. He wears his yarmulke on his like shaved bald head, and he lives in Florida, and he lives in kind of a cool place. But he hangs around like his friends now, or have been for quite some time, are Muslim men because they kind of have this bond of like everybody hates us. You're black and Jewish. Everybody hates you. You're one of us. You're a person of the book. Come hang out with us. So they all just like kind of band together. It's like kind of this like I don't want to say outlaw, but just kind of like people that are yeah, solidarity. Exactly.
So that's interesting because I'm not actually a person of color. If I was a person of color, it would be probably some kind of really light off-white peach. I don't know. I never identified the color, but I'm definitely not a person of color because my family has ethnically are European, right? From Spain. And again, not everybody from Spain looks the way that I do either, right? But my culture is Caribbean because my father was from Cuba. My family lived in Cuba for a long time. So my culture, I when people hear me speak Spanish, they'll be like, oh, suena cubana. And I was like, soy cubana. So it's like your accent kind of gives away
What
that
does
I'm
that
Cuban.
mean?
I'm Cuban.
Oh, Cubana. Okay.
Cubano.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't always enunciate every letter. I can, but that's a whole other story.
That's my ears. That's the problem, not your mouth.
So my culture is Caribbean. It's Cuban, but I was born in this country and I identify as Latina because, see, if you just say Cuban, then you just have a couple other million people that you have solidarity with. But Latino it implies something more, and it's a larger group, and it's also, for me, it's a political identification. And then religiously, I'm Muslim, but in Islam, being Muslim is more than just your faith. It also is part of your culture, right? So the celebrations that the things that I celebrate, the food that I eat, sometimes the clothes that I wear, is influenced by Islam. So Islam is also part of culture. So I have Caribbean culture, Muslim culture. Obviously,
culture.
I'm American, New Orleans. I mean, I say y'all and inshallah in the same sentence.
Inshallah, y'all.
This is common, right? So how do we self-identify? But then, definitely what you said about being, black and Jewish, there is a sense of that we have been othered, and there's us and them, and that we have been othered. And I think what a lot of people have done, including, myself, consciously or unconsciously, is that, okay, so if you think I'm the other, then everybody else that you have othered, we are us. And we're going to get together because we have an understanding that, hey, there's a group of people that have othered you too, but the truth is that there is as many similarities as there are differences between you and I. We have many similarities and we have many differences. Yet we are much more similar in this point in time, especially, than those people who've othered us. Mm-hmm. And that's by choice, so that means family.
No, and who benefits from the otherization process, by the way? It's certainly not like even people who are like even like the regular run of the mill like reactionary does not benefit from like the racism that they sort of like purvey or buy into. Who benefits from it but bosses, but politicians that are opportunistic, the structures that maintain the order that the world exists within benefits from these kinds of divisions amongst working class people against regular people. Am I correct in assuming that or saying that?
So if you think that the norm is being a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and if we can add male, then everybody else then becomes other.
Very narrow definition of who anybody is or who the regular person is.
Right. So that's part of it. But the idea that people will self-identify and then other people will identify us, and this is now becoming politicized within groups, but also it's also being used as a weapon against people. So if you can say, okay, we're all family, but then there are other people who say, oh, well, you are different and you don't belong. So then it becomes a weapon.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to WHIV LP New Orleans, WHIV fm.org/listen. Our guest is Jenny Yanez, and this show is Good Morning Comrade. So in addition to all the things that you said, you're Latina, you're a Muslim, you're also an organizer. So can you tell us a little bit about the organizing work that you do? We just had a meeting right before this with an event. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yeah. Well, first, can I add a little joke? It's not a funny haha joke.
Oh, we love jokes here. Joke away.
Yeah, I know, but you guys are so much funnier than I am.
Tell more jokes.
So much funnier than I am. So some people say, well, I don't want to belong to any particular religion because I don't believe in organized religion. So we like to tell people that then you should try becoming Muslim because we are very unorganized, extremely unorganized. We don't have actually a hierarchy and, whatever, clergy and all these stuff. So to be called an organizer to me, it's like, it's an obligation, but it's also an honor because I don't think that I, completely do justice to the immense work of the organizers that exist in this city and around, the country and the world that traditionally have been unifying people to create a social change that's necessary. Just unifying people. So
I guess to push back a little bit on that a little bit. I guess that I would say intensive organizing. I would say it's more of a process.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay.
I've been paid to be an organizer before. I'm not paid now to do that, but I've been paid to be an organizer before, and it's a weighty title, and some people don't understand what it means at all. The Muslim community has had organizers forever, so I'm very proud to take that title, but it's also very weighty because it's a huge responsibility, right? Anyone who says, hey, I'm an organizer, it's not just being an activist. It's a different term. So for the longest time, mostly I could say I'm an activist, and there have been opportunities for me to organize that I take very, very seriously, but I would not be able to do it without other organizers and the entire community putting, so much effort into it, and to just believing that, hey, that this is something that we can do together. And then if I can somehow bring people together to do something that's good, then I will accept that title. But just bringing people together is not enough.
To throw some shade, have you ever had an experience to where I'm going to come out and like, oh, we're doing a thing, we're organizing a thing, it's Jenny Yanez's thing, and people show up and they see you in your hijab, and then they just slowly kind of back out of the door. They're like, what is this thing?
That's such a good question. That in New Orleans, to tell you the truth, it's been, I don't have any good stories about that, but I do have a story about that. So I went to a industrial areas foundation. So there was a organizer training, official faith-based training some years back. And a seasoned faith-based organizer was flown in from California. And after the trainings and the retreat, he said, well, Jenny, I want to have lunch with you, and I want to talk to you about some stuff. I'm talking about seasoned, like a person who spent decades organizing faith-based groups to create necessary change in their local communities. And we had a lot in common. He was also Latino. I think he identified as Chicano. And we sat together, and he said, it's great that you identify as Latina and that, you're Cuban, but you wear the scarf. So organizers really should look like the people that they're organizing. And he said you should take off your scarf, which is true. It is a real concept. But I am the person that I am trying to relate to. It was a very confusing statement that he made. Like, you're not
Can
Latina
you feel
enough.
a
You're not
sa-
Latina enough.
Can you feel a face palm like through radio?
Well,
Is that
I'm
a
not
thing?
gonna blame him. I'm not judging him. I'm saying that was the first. Okay. What you just asked. What do you do with the scarf situation? That was the first time that I had to say, oh yeah, I forgot I'm wearing this. See, because when I leave the house, I don't notice. I just wear it. It's like, doing your hair. You just do your scarf and you walk out. And then you realize, oh, there's how you self-identify, how other people identify you. I find myself to be a very empowered, outspoken person, but not everybody's going to see that until they know me, right? And then they'll be like, oh yeah, she ain't oppressed. But that was the first time that I heard an actual seasoned organizer say, if you're going to talk to other faith-based people or other Latinos, you need to take that off. And I said, you just spent a whole weekend telling me that this work has a lot to do with our own values, so we do this because we believe that it needs to be done and we're informed by our values. I said, this is why I wear this as well, because I'm informed by my values.
Well, and then there's also this implication that people with who are in the same religion as you are not part of a community that they're essentially organizing, and that's BS. That's not true. Like this is like Latina people are Muslim. I mean, you're sitting right in front of me, so obviously you're not a unicorn.
Well, bingo. There it is. That there are increasingly more Latinos who identify as Muslim. So that's one part of it, and the other part was this was years ago, before we saw Muslims be more politically active, more civically visible. So years before, obviously, we became a lot more visible after 45. I mean, that's a given. I think you've noticed.
Yeah, and if I was gonna share more about myself, I'm an atheist. So if I was gonna break that down even further, I would take religion out of it. In what universe? What year was this? Can you try to remember what year?
What year this is now?
Oh no!
What year that happened?
Yeah.
I was gonna be like, sometimes it's hard for me to remember what day it is. But year.
How long ago was this?
So I want to say it was. Oh boy, I want to say it was at least 6 years ago. Not that long ago.
Even 6 years ago, and I am a political organizer and activist. In what universe do I think it's proper or any way acceptable to police a woman's dress and tell her what she is or isn't going to wear? That's insane.
If my daughter is listening to this, she'd be snapping. She'd be snapping at you in a good way. Yeah. It's a good snap.
Shout out to Sabah.
And and women have been policed for everything for the longest times. You wear too much, you wear too little, and I think that it's really it needs to stop. I mean, listen to what we're saying, right? So yeah. Thank you for saying that.
I mean, now to play devil's advocate on that, I've had this conversation with a Muslim woman in my 20s. I remember we were talking about whatever, and she was married, and she said, "I don't wear short skirts because I don't want to. I could if I wanted to." Now, if you want to have devil's advocate wasn't the right word, but if you really want to have like an actual thought exercise, like, are you really doing that because your culture has defined your values, or is it really your choice? And that's only that's something that I can never give
a good
you.
question.
That's your decision or not.
That is a good question. Anything, okay, as speaking as a Muslim, obviously I'm not formally educated in Islam. I'm not, not a scholar in any way, shape, or form. I've just learned as much about Islam as I can so that I can not just practice it, but try my best to share an honest truth of what Islam is. And of course, I myself am not the example of a Muslim woman. I'm just a Muslim woman. But that is, and in terms of what we dress or we don't have to dress, we are told that this is how a Muslim woman should dress for prayer, and this is how a Muslim woman should dress in public, right? Just like we're told many other things. This is how prayer is. This is the times of prayer, fasting. We don't drink alcohol. We don't eat pork, etc. Now, everything that we do is based on our conscience. So what I choose to do or don't do is between, me and God. This is, in Islam, we don't police each other. We don't say, hey, you're not wearing a scarf, so you are not Muslim. This is not part of our faith. You can't look at someone and say, that person's Muslim, that person's Muslim, that person's not Muslim. However, it's easy to identify
that's
someone
just simple gatekeeping.
But it's easier to identify someone that wants to be identified. So the Quran says, that when you wear the scarf, it's so that you may be identified. And that's one of the reasons that Muslim women believe that they should wear the scarf, is because they want to be recognized as Muslims. Like, I'm proud to be Muslim. I want you to know. I'm Muslim. And then it comes with responsibilities, personal responsibilities, and responsibilities that I have towards my community to be Muslim now. And it's something I take great pride and responsibility for. So some people will identify as Muslim in a very, very obvious way, like by wearing the scarf. And other people will tell you, I'm Muslim, and they will behave as a Muslim, and they don't wear the scarf. We cannot say they are good Muslims, they are bad Muslims. This is not really part of our faith. So that what she told you is right. It's always a choice. It's always a choice.
Oh, absolutely, it's right. Whatever answer she decided or not to tell me, she'd tell me it's not my business either. You know, and that is the correct answer. Whatever she said, I guess if it makes any more sense, it was even more not even about religion or clothes. It was like, does free will, we're getting off topic, but does free will even exist?
Okay, that's a whole other conversation, and I can get into that.
Absolutely.
But just to add, so if you wanted the religious response, the religious answer, do women have to cover? I personally believe, my understanding of the Quran and Islam and the rules of Islam, yes, women should cover. I totally believe that. But I also believe that if they don't cover, they're still 100% Muslim. And so you present people with your best understanding of the faith, as either from your own understanding through the scholars' interpretation, or from your studies that should be authentically guided. But once you know something, you should share that with other people. And if I don't choose to cover, for me to say, no, I don't believe that in Islam that God doesn't want us to cover, that would be a false statement you wouldn't get from me. I would say, just like you have to pray 5 times a day. So if you don't pray, like let's say Jeffrey says, oh, do Muslims have to pray 5 times a day? It's like we are told to pray 5 times a day. So if you don't pray 5 times a day, you just don't.
Right.
But you
do what
told
you do.
to.
That doesn't make you...
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. You do what you do. I can't say, oh, the Quran says you don't have to do that. No, the Quran says you have to do that. Now, whether you do it or not, that's your problem. That's none of my business.
That's between you and
that's up
God.
to you, and there we go. So I think there's an understanding in Christianity and in other faiths that there are people also that identify a specific faith, but they don't follow the tenets of that faith. We don't call them out and say, we can say that doesn't sound like the tenets of your faith. It's a much more honest answer, if you ask me, for someone to say, yes, you are right. My faith doesn't call me to be a racist. I'm just a racist. That's much more honest when you ask somebody. Yeah, it's much more honest when you ask someone, hey, if they're Christian and they're racist, and you say, well, I didn't think your book called you to be racist. It's a much more honest answer to say, my book doesn't.
And
I just am. That's what I'm talking about.
Not even that. Like, if you're just basically saying God made me racist, or God made me homophobic, or God made me transphobic, or God made me sexist, or whatever, you're essentially just blaming God for your problems.
Well, I mean, you have to take responsibility for this integrity. Like, this is what I believe. This is how I'm gonna act on it. And none of us are perfect. Obviously, not a single one of us are. I don't know. I didn't ask you guys if you were perfect.
I'm sure I've made many flaws on the radio already just since we started talking. So
yeah, there we go, and that's a beautiful thing. Self-reflection and owning up to our humanity. Yeah, so I do not want to claim to be in any way like a role model. Although people, you self-identify and other people identify you, and you just try to do your best.
Yeah. So another thing that, so one of the early things that I worked on with you was I attended one of your Introduction to Islam 101 classes that you held at your mosque. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, and remember, we have to go back to Lights for Liberty, because that's what we started off talking. I don't want to miss that, because that is one of the reasons that we were here in the station gathered.
Okay, let's talk about Let's talk about Lights for Liberty then, and then we'll come back to 101.
Sure, because it's your show. Don't let me agitate you into
talk about what you want to talk about. Go.
So with the Lights for Liberty, so it's a national call. It was a national call to get together, or for grassroots organizations to get together and speak out against the concentration camps that we now know to be concentration camps. And I know some people we can talk about that. Some people don't like the term concentration camps, and if you want to talk about that, that's fine. But if you want to call them detention camps, at the end of the day,
No,
ICE
concentration camps. Just go with that.
ICE is
don't back down from that.
ICE is inhumanely detaining people, and they are also breaking the law. There are lawsuits against ICE, and they're also breaking the law, but they're inhumanely detaining people that are dying in custody, some or many who are children. So there are people of conscience, people of faith, mothers, people in every community that want to speak out about this, want to abolish ICE and the camps, defund ICE, because they are finding ways to build more concentration camps or more detention camps, if you will, and to incarcerate people who just are seeking asylum, which is their legal right in the United States. So there was a call for this nationally, lightsforliberty.org, and this city answered the call. We're going to be one of the cities. We're going to hopefully bring out hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, to the streets on July 12th in front of the ICE offices on Poydras at 7 p.m. And we've been talking about, just who wants to come out and just talking to each other about July 12th. That's going to happen soon. So we have a Facebook page, event page called Lights for Liberty, New Orleans, Louisiana, where we are trying to educate folks on what's going on. Doctors Without Borders have talked about this. There's a call for United Nations to come into our country to see how we are detaining people who are seeking asylum. There has definitely been psychologists, psychiatrists, people that have come in and said this is wrong, this is inhumane, and it's just incredible that we still consider ourselves a free democratic nation.
1 second, since you're cutting.
Because I'm going on and on.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Just your station ID real quick. You're listening to 102.3 WHIV LP New Orleans. And yes, the goofy thing about ICE is that people act like ICE have been around for a million zillion years. This is like, we have done immigration and border enforcement before this Gestapo was formed. And so when people say, well, you want to abolish ICE, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy. It's going back to the system that we had before, which wasn't that great, but at least we still had these camps under Obama. So don't get it twisted. We were still putting kids in cages under Obama and under Clinton, but Trump has definitely ramped it up. And also we've taken away the ability for most of these people, when they come across the border and they do get detained, we used to just slap a, you know what I'm talking about. We used to slap one of the house arrest bracelets on them, and then they would show up to court and they do their asylum hearing and let the legal process take its course. But now we're not doing that anymore. We're trying to discourage people from leaving countries that we, through our neoliberalist policies, have destroyed their country, and we're trying to stop them by caging them, thinking that's going to be some kind of deterrent. And in no way it is. These people are still going to come. They're still going to take that chance. Mm-hmm. It's not going to stop.
And so it's a good point that you made, that this isn't just happening now with Trump. I think that one of the things that's different about Trump, and I usually don't say his name. I usually just say 45, because it not to disrespect any person, but without disrespecting him, just to say 45 feels better than honoring him with even calling his name, to tell you the truth. But before 45, Obama was known as the deporter in chief. Obama was known as the deporter in chief. So, of course, when we compare what we're dealing with now with what we had, of course, we're going to say, oh, wow. But yes, you're right. There were deportations under Obama, many of them. And ICE is still being funded because we have, Democratic legislators that could change this, who could defund ICE, mm-hmm. but they are not answering that call. They're actually helping to grow, to bring more money into more detention centers. So it's not just the Republicans. And we had Chloe from the Congress of Day Laborers here today who helped educate us that Democrats are funding these these camps and these detention centers as well. Make no mistake, it's not just the Republicans.
Yeah,
so you're right there.
I really liked her framing in that meeting of, we don't want to talk about separating families. We don't want to talk about we should talk about the inhumane conditions, but that should not be our battle cry, because what the U.S. government will do, what ICE will do, what Homeland will do is they'll just say, okay, well, we'll make the conditions a little bit better. You'll get toothpaste and you'll get toothbrushes and deodorant, and we'll just cage everybody together, grandma, granddad. Right. And I was like, yeah, it's a really good framing. Don't cede that ground of, we just want more. That's such a neoliberalist third way position of, we want more humane prisons and concentration camps. No, I want them torn apart brick by brick. It's what I want.
Yeah. And why are we funding this? Why do they need to be incarcerated? Mm-hmm. Why does a child need to be incarcerated? Let alone, once you incarcerate them, do not provide adequate health care, medicine, and it's just outrageous. It's outrageous. And then the fact that we criticize other countries for human rights abuses, that just adds insult to injury. It's like we go ahead and we say, oh, look what Venezuela's doing. Oh, look what this country is doing. And it's like, really, why don't you look at yourself first, and then you can start talking about what other countries are doing, because they're lying about that too. That's a whole other story. I don't think we have enough time to talk about that now, but that that they're telling us, look what's going on there, as they are suppressing what's going on in those countries, as they are literally creating chaos in other countries. They're telling us that, but we're the democracy, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, that you've got these forces that are saying that, the media tells you that you're radical and crazy for wanting to abolish ICE, something that hasn't been in existence for that long. They're saying that you're crazy that you want open borders. Well, we already have open borders. We have open borders for the rich, and we have open borders for capital.
Well, I mean, not to disparage an unelected person who got into this mess, Melania. How did Melania Trump get here?
That's real sketchy.
I mean, how did she get here?
She overstayed. She did
she overstayed a visa.
Overstayed her visa, and that is the most common.
She worked on a visa that she wasn't supposed to work on.
Exactly, and that's the most common immigration violation of people who overstay their visa.
Yeah, so you could get on a plane from a European country and stay in the Ritz-Carlton, and then you decide, oh, you know what, I kind of like it in New Orleans. I'm going to stay here for 3 years without permission because I can afford it, and nobody's going to pull him over at a red light.
Nobody.
So to say that this is not, completely, racist policies, and that these are brown people that are being persecuted, and that they're in danger, where's the lie?
Another fun thing for you to Google is, if you Google Russian anchor babies, since we're so concerned about anchor babies and people having babies here to become U.S. citizens through birth of being on U.S. soil. There's a whole subculture of Russian women who, when they're pregnant, the rich Russian women fly here specifically to have their child. That. Yeah, but Google it. So fly here specifically to have their child so they can have U.S. citizenship. Nobody says anything about this because they're rich, and it serves capitalism.
And I mean, you're just being so polite there, Robert, because they're white.
Because they're white.
It's because they're white. And because they're rich.
No, and I'm not saying...
But see, they don't know how much money you have at the red light, though.
I think, but the thing is...
They don't know if you're an immigrant at the red light unless you're brown.
That's true.
Unless they've already othered you. Unless you're them and not us. And those are the people who are in danger. I mean, when we're talking about people who are in danger from being detained... Yeah, there are immigrants from European countries in this country too, but they're just not in danger of being detained.
Right. That is 100%.
Yeah, it's not an immigration conversation.
The only thing I would push back on that is, at the average cop on the beat or the average ICE agent out there does not. Yeah, they're pulling over brown. They're pulling over brown people. They're waiting. The sick thing is that they're waiting for them to do what they're supposed to do and do their ICE check-ins or go to their court dates, and then waiting to, like modern day slave catchers, gaggle them up right when they leave the courthouse, it's so sick that you're saying, like, these people aren't following the law, but when they try to follow the law, you've got your slave catchers out there to get them. The only thing I would say is like how capital, yes, it's racist, but capitalism is even more the problem because Border Patrol and INS knows, they have an idea. Let's take those Russian women who come over here to have their children. They have an idea. They might not know your exact net worth, but they have an idea. When you show up at the international border and you've got your Russian passport, you've got your plane ticket that you paid thousands of dollars to get over here, and then they've got that you're staying at whatever bougie hotel you're staying at while you wait to have this baby. And we have an idea of like how much money we're dealing with. So that goes back to what I'm saying is like open borders is already a thing. You can move material. Corporations move material across borders, no problem. Rich people can move across
tourism.
With a little piece of paper.
Yeah, tourism is an open border.
No problem. But for somebody who's suffering, somebody who's poor,
well,
there's no open borders for them.
We prosecuted someone for giving water.
Absolutely.
I forgot his name, and I'm so sorry about that. For giving water to migrants that had crossed the border. And how is this a criminal act? This is the depth of the lowness that we are reaching. You know, that there was a poet that was just arrested for doing for an activist poet for speaking out against the camps, and he was arrested.
This?
I just found out about it, so I don't have the details on it. But this is very scary, right? So, but it should not stop people from speaking out. There are some people in the Latino community that may be concerned to come out on July 12th in front of the ICE offices to say, you know, this is inhumane. You know, they may be, and they rightfully so. So there are 1.5 million people in the greater New Orleans area. I don't see a reason why everybody who's able to come out and just say abolish ICE or close the camps. This is not wrong. This is inhumane. We have a system in place where people can seek asylum, and that nobody needs to be incarcerated in order to seek asylum. Not to even mention the historical reason that we have people coming into this country. We create refugees.
Absolutely.
We don't just say, oh, well, once we have refugees, we don't want you here. We're creating refugees around the world with our wars. Correct. And then if you know anything about the banana republics that we created in Central America.
Get out of my head, Jenny.
Please, and you said use about Google. I'm going to say Wiki. Really like 7th grade stuff. Go Wiki United Fruit Company.
Yes.
Go Wiki United Fruit Company so you know what mess we made in Central America. So that when people from Central America, we take all their resources, we go over there and we basically, we basically not only create a banana republic, but it's a plantation. We make a plantation and we run in the plantation. So then, when we exhaust all of the resources, then, and bring the money here, and then we're like, okay, well, we're gonna leave y'all without jobs, and we took everything. And then when people come searching for the food over here, it's like, oh, you can't come.
Yeah, that's one of the first episodes we did for Good Morning Comrade was on Memorial Day, and I talked about, because I'm a Marine Corps vet, and one of the guys in the famous Marine General Smedley D. Butler, they really say, oh, these are the wars in Marine Corps training. They say, oh, these are the wars he fought, blah blah blah. He was such a great field general. What they don't tell you is he wrote a book called War is a Racket, and he decrying all wars and saying that he wasn't necessarily a soldier of the U.S. military more than he was a hired killer for United Fruit Company, and in all these wars establishing banana republics. And
we're right now. We're still endangering those countries. We're still putting those countries and establishing or supporting puppet governments, and we're doing that in Venezuela actively right now as we speak. Again, that's a longer conversation. I do want to talk about Islam 101, but on Friday, July 12th, we have a simple message. Which is defund ICE. There's no reason why we need to have an enforcement, an entire, and just folks that are going out there arresting families, women and children, and then putting them in camps without medical care, without food. And there's cases of sexual abuse and documented cases where children have, and men and women have died in U.S. custody. And we have in place a system. We have in place asylum. There is a way to seek asylum, and not even if they weren't seeking asylum, they said there's no reason for them to be incarcerated. There's absolutely no reason for them to be incarcerated. So these camps, these detention centers have to close, and then ICE is the enforcement. So ICE is kind of like the SS.
No,
ICE is kind of like the SS in Germany. And then again, if you've been listening to the show, you probably
I don't feel that's hyperbolic at all.
You don't? Because I know somebody will.
No.
Somebody will. And I don't mean that in any kind of offense, but yeah, if you have a policy, then you need people to help you enforce that policy, good or bad. And so I don't know why, if you work for ICE, you need to check yourself. You can't get another job. That's something we brought up too. Like, you can't get another. I mean, you are actually you're enforcing something that's criminal.
Right.
You're enforcing something that's criminal, and just because it's legal, don't mean it's right.
That's correct. I just did an episode about this a couple days ago, and it was the same thing. Like, if you're one of the good cops out there, then prove it and quit. Because if you're supporting this, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're working for ICE, you're working for Homeland, you're on the wrong side of history. You are. When this all goes down and the history books get written, and they're gonna ask you, what did you do during this time? You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be like it was in Germany after World War II, where the people who were involved in the Nazis didn't talk about. They were just like, and I read that as an anecdote, is you can tell who did what in the war or in Germany during that time, because people who don't talk about it, they were involved. They were involved either giving support and comfort to the Nazi regime, or they were or they were frontline vanguard. And the people who do talk about it were part of the resistance. And I just want to remind everybody, you're listening to WHIV LP New Orleans, 102.3 WHIV New Orleans.
So I want to emphasize, because maybe some people are going to be like, well, what's going on that day?
What can we do?
And also, just to close the conversation about Lights for Liberty. So some people may be like, well, what do we do? What's this Lights for Liberty? Please check Lights for Liberty New Orleans, Louisiana on Facebook, or on the website lightsforliberty.org. Thank you for giving this time and this space to do that, because this is upcoming and it's important. You're just going to say this is wrong. That's all. We're going to have faith-based leaders sharing their thoughts on it. And it's also a vigil, literally a vigil. So it is a very simple, peaceful way to speak up, especially for those people who can't, because they are detained. They're literally detained. So thank you for the space to talk about this. I did want to bring up the Islam 101 that Jeffrey asked me about. Did you ever hear about Islam 101?
No, not at all.
Okay, so Islam 101, well, I went to UNO for undergrad, one of the schools that I went to. So we didn't have 101, 102. We had different, but
I did a little snooping on you. So you're a social worker, or where you went to?
So I got my master's in social work from SUNO, Southern University at New Orleans.
My fiance is a social worker. And she got her master's at Tulane, and she wished, because she moved down here to go to Tulane because she got accepted, and she says, I wish I'd have known SUNO had a program.
I ain't gonna throw any shade on Tulane.
I know, she's like, I hate Tulane. No, you can't throw shade. She's every day, she's like, I hate it and I'm in so much debt. She's like, I wish I knew SUNO had a program. I would have just went to SUNO.
So, I focused on community organizing. So at SUNO, so on the macro level, and I was very grateful because many of my professors they're now retired, but they were around during the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. So, they could throw names like Aretha Cathal Haley because they knew her personally. So that's kind of amazing. So I had a really good opportunity to study with some professors before they retired. And of course, a lot of people do not realize what SUNO looked like after Hurricane Katrina. I came as an older student and after Katrina, and I graduated in 2010. So it was like a second career. All our classes were in trailers, and we're a few miles from UNO.
Right.
But all our classes are in trailers. Take a guess why you think that was.
I mean, I wasn't here for Katrina, so If I had to guess, because a lot of people who go to SUNO are black and brown, and it's not
Thing.
Tulane.
It said HBCU. It's an historical black college and university. And it's maybe a mile from another school that was up and running after Hurricane Katrina. Every single one of my classes was out of a trailer. As a matter of fact, and some of you may already know this, a lot of the HBCUs were given, or even the A&M schools, right? The agricultural and mechanical colleges where African Americans would study, were not given the best land to build the actual physical buildings in. And SUNO was given the land that basically gets like 12 feet of water after Katrina.
Shout out to all our Florida listeners who download the show. FAMU, go Rattlers.
Oh, yeah, Florida. Huh?
Yeah, Marching 100, Death March. That's where, my grandmother went to Bethune.
So I don't know how, see, you're supposed to lead me in this conversation, Robert.
I mean,
we were supposed to talk about 101, Islam 101, and then I went all the way back to SUNO. So you distracted me. What do you mean good? It's just good at distracting me.
Islam 101.
So Islam 101. So Islam 101, some people say that I founded the program, but it was really a collaborative effort with he's not old, he's young. Our former Imam, Abdurrahman Bashir, who is now in Allen, Texas, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where all the Imams end up. And he is so awesome. He rocks so hard. May Allah bless him. God bless him. He's awesome. He's a family friend. He's a spiritual advisor. He's younger than I am. So, but still, gotta give the shout out to Abdurrahman Bashir. And we also had a former Imam, Omar Suleiman, who has now, basically known all over the country as a civil rights speaker, at the very least. And he's also known around the world speaking about Islam. He was also our Imam in that same mosque, Abu Bakr. So I'm very grateful to have known them personally and to be inspired and, spiritually, just get a lot of knowledge and grounding in their teachings. And they totally believe that your faith should transform you. That your prayer should transform you, and when you are done praying in the mosque or in your home, you should go out in the world and be that light and make that change and make that difference, because that's what it really means to be Muslim. And so those were my imams, and again, they're both younger than I am. So Abdurrahman Bashir and I had very, very similar ideas on introducing basics of Islam to new Muslims. And this was after, again, as a reaction to some of these attacks that had happened in the city. I think it was one of the ones that happened in Paris. There was something that happened in Paris. But we had been talking about how do we educate new Muslims. And if like I said earlier at the top of the hour, we're not like an organized religion as in, okay, you have to take catechism classes, for example, or you have to take a course before you accept Islam or convert, etc. We don't do any of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadin Rasulullah. I believe that there's no God but one God, and that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, and that's it. Now you're a Muslim. So now you got to figure out how to act and be Muslim. That's it. That's all it takes, literally, guys. So we didn't have a way to disseminate, well, how do you pray, and what are you supposed to believe, and these like just theological basic concepts, right? Nothing fancy, just like the basic belief system and the basic practice. 6 beliefs, 5 practices. That's basically, if you want to be technical about it. So we came up with some resources, some books, and some slides, and hey, let's have lunch. Let's have like Pakistani food, Arabic food, different foods that a lot of the people who come to our congregations, part of their cultures, that is a little bit different from people who are not part of the Muslim community, part of our immigrant experience and immigrant community, Muslim community. So we had lunch, and then we have open to questions and discussions. So we worked 6 months to a year on this program called Islam 101, Introduction to Islam. And we've had 12 in the last 3-4 years. We've had 12 classes graduate. So over 100 people have taken it. It's a 6-week, 2.5-hour class. And there have been at least a dozen people actually say, hey, I want to accept Islam. I want to live my life as a Muslim, because they already came with an idea of what Islam was. They were drawn to it, right? So I don't want anybody to think, oh, you come to Islam class and you convert, or we're going to convert you, or you have to convert if you come. No, there are people who are like, I think I want to be Muslim, but what does it really mean to be Muslim? And who does classes like that? So they had their, I guess, final questions answered. or a space that was safe to do that. And then we've had a lot of people who come and say, I didn't know that was Islam. People from like many different faiths, people who are atheist, agnostic, people who are teachers. There was a Jewish lady in Metairie, in the suburbs, that had so many Arabic students that are Muslim that she wanted to know more about Islam just so that she can understand the child's home environment a little bit better. I think that's so weird so to me, awesome.
Because again, like talking to my dad, that's so weird that like a Jewish person who practiced Judaism wouldn't have like. My father would call the people. He would say that people of the book. So yeah, it's like why she wouldn't have like a touchstone there?
Well, I mean, because you can identify as any faith, and then what your understanding is on the faith might be different. It might be a cultural practice for you. But I think it was it's very commendable that she wanted to come and do that. That it was very commendable and so we've had Buddhists take our course, Hindus. We had a whole course of Catholics, including clergymen. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Clergymen?
Sure.
Clergy people? Clergy?
Yeah.
But the class is open to everyone. There have been people who are activists and organizers that have just seen me out there, and they met me and they wanted to know a little bit more about my faith. And there's, sometimes when you're out there on the streets, sometimes there's no time to have serious conversations, theological conversations. And the mosque was open and we had lunch together and they learned. So Islam 101 happens seasonally, maybe 3, sometimes 4 times a year. But right now we're down to like 3 times a year. 6-week course. It's free. And it's on Sundays from 2 to 4:30, and it's held at Abu Bakr Mosque again. Okay. All the materials are free. Babysitting is free. Lunch is free. We don't proselytize. We don't say like, oh, you have to be Muslim or this is why you should be Muslim. It's like this is the sources that we consider authentic, and this is how you could find those sources. So if somebody says, oh, this person said such and such a thing, and we want you to check out what's their sources, who was their teacher, who said that, what book did they get that from. We want to give you tools and then just clarify some basic points so that you can continue to educate yourself. That's what our goal is. And then also to have an opportunity to open our mosque, to meet people, for people to meet us, so that we can have conversations in the future. So Islam 101 was really something I love and is very near and dear to my heart. And we have a 102 now too, by the way.
That sounds really awesome. Like, we're almost out of time. So go ahead and plug Lights for Liberty one more time. And I know, I look at the stats, y'all. A lot of y'all here are listening in Louisiana. You're within driving distance of this. You need to come check it out. Plug it. Go.
So, Lights for Liberty, Friday, July 12th. 7 to 9 p.m. And if you can just be there 15 minutes, you'd be there 15 minutes. By the way, they stop charging parking at 7, right? Downtown?
That's correct.
Yeah, so you don't even have to pay for parking. If you get a little late, we're okay. It's okay. It's fine. Get there a little late. You don't have to pay for parking. But 7 to 9 is the vigil. We're going to provide the little lights, the little vigil lights, and you just open your ears and listen. That's the hardest part. I say the hardest part is being able to listen, because some people will be sharing their stories that are painful. And opening our hearts to be able to do that is not easy for everybody. It's not easy for everyone. So Friday, July 12th, 7 to 9 p.m. in front of the ICE offices, not inside the ICE offices, in front of that building. I think it's 1250 Poydras, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
There'll be a group of us there, and there will be people who will let you know how to continue being able to affect a difference and a change. And they will show you how to do it, very simple steps. They will share that with us at that time. In the meantime, you could go to Lights for Liberty New Orleans Facebook page. It's an event page. We're going to create a Facebook page for it that will continue past the vigil. But Lights for Liberty New Orleans, and the national page is lightsforliberty.org website. I see somebody had asked, are there other cities doing it? Yes, there are over 50 cities around the country. Got national press attention. So please look for lightsforliberty.org for a city close to you that may be participating in this nationwide vigil to abolish ICE, close the camps, and human detention.
Fantastic. It was so excellent having Jenny Yanez, activist, motivator. She's wears so many hats. She has a show here, Islam in the Crescent City on WHIV 102.3 LP that you can stream online. What day is it, real quick?
Thursdays at 5 p.m. and you can stream it anywhere around the world. Thursdays New Orleans time, NOLA time. Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Yeah, go to WHIV.org and you can stream it anytime. We got to get out of here. We're literally running seconds up against the clock. Go ahead, and if you're listening to this on the podcast, give us a like, a subscribe, a rate and review. It really helps us in the rankings. Thank you so much again, Jenny, for being here. Lights for Liberty, come on out, and we'll see you, I guess, tomorrow. You'll hear more tomorrow. See you then.
Thank you so much. I can't wait.
Thank you.